Hey guys, tonight we're going to slow things down and sit with a story that matters. Marcus Tate, a 42-year-old black tech CEO, carries the weight of 1,000 unseen battles. From Chicago's South Side to the corner office, he's clawed his way up only to face a world that questions his worth at every turn. Tonight we unravel his fight against prejudice, a story of quiet strength and unshakable truth. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe, but only if stories like this truly move you. Comment your city and the time you're watching. Now close your eyes or don't, it's your choice. Either way, you're about to witness something real. The Chicago skyline glitters through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus Tate's office, a constellation of steel and light that feels both distant and hard-won. At 42, Marcus is a man of measured movements, his broad shoulders carrying the weight of a life built from nothing. His suit, tailored and crisp, hugs his frame, but it's the faint lines etched around his dark eyes that tell the real story, years of late nights of doors slammed shut, of proving himself twice over. He sits at his desk, a sleek slab of mahogany, reviewing an email that arrived just hours ago. The subject line is bold: Invitation to Chicago Sunrise. The message is polite professional, inviting him to appear on the city's top morning talk show to discuss innovation and diversity in tech. Marcus leans back his chair, creaking softly, and exhales. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. His assistant, Lena Carter, knocks lightly before entering. At 29, she's sharp, her braided hair pulled into a neat bun, her eyes quick to catch what others miss. "You're not actually considering this, are you?" she asks, her voice a mix of concern and exasperation. She sets a steaming mug of coffee on his desk, the faint scent of hazelnut curling into the air. "Those shows love to play nice, then twist the knife." Marcus's lips curve into a half smile, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "It's exposure, Lena. We just landed the CyberShield contract. This could put us on the map." Lena crosses her arms, her brow furrowing. "Or it could put you in their crosshairs. You know how they frame black CEOs, either you're a charity case or a threat." Marcus turns the email over in his mind. The CyberShield contract, a $150 million deal to secure government data systems, was no small feat. His company, Tate Innovations, outmaneuvered tech giants with a cutting-edge encryption system, the kind of breakthrough that should silence doubters. But doubt, Marcus knows, is a stubborn thing, especially when your skin carries a hue that makes success suspicious. He thinks of his mother, who worked double shifts at a diner to keep their lights on her hands rough from scrubbing counters, her voice steady as she told him, "They'll try to dim you, Marcus. Shine anyway." That phrase, "shine anyway," is his anchor, a quiet refrain that hums through his veins. He stands adjusting his tie and catches his reflection in the window. The city sprawls below a tapestry of ambition and struggle, from the gleaming loop to the weathered streets of Englewood where he grew up. Chicago's his home, but it's never been kind. Not when he was a kid dodging gangs to get to school. Not when he was a young engineer pitching ideas to rooms full of white faces who looked past him. Even now, with a corner office and a Forbes profile, the city watches him with a skeptical eye. The invitation to Chicago Sunrise feels like another test, another chance to prove he belongs. "I'll do it," he says, his voice low but firm. Lena shakes her head, muttering, "Hope you're ready for their games." The morning of the interview, Marcus arrives at the WCLT studios in the West Loop, a sleek building of glass and chrome that hums with the energy of live television. The air is crisp, carrying the faint tang of Lake Michigan, and the streets buzz with early commuters. Inside the green room is sterile, all white walls and stiff leather chairs, the kind of place that feels designed to unsettle. A young producer barely out of college greets him with a clipboard and a distracted "Mr. Tate, we'll mic you up soon." No eye contact, no warmth, just a transaction. Marcus sits, his hands resting on his knees, and watches the monitor mounted on the wall. It plays the live broadcast, a segment on fall fashion, then a teaser for what's next. Coming up, the tech boom merit or mandate. The words flash across the screen, and Marcus's jaw tightens. So that's the angle. In the makeup chair, a stylist dabs powder on his face, her movements mechanical. The faint buzz of fluorescent lights fills the silence, and Marcus feels the weight of the moment settling in. He's no stranger to scrutiny boardrooms, investor meetings, industry galas, where he's often the only black face. But this is different. This is live millions watching every word a potential landmine. He thinks of his daughter, Aisha, who's 14 and already learning the world's harsh edges. Last night, she looked at him over dinner, her braids swinging as she tilted her head. Dad, why do you keep doing these things? They're just gonna twist what you say. He'd smiled, brushing off her worry, but her words linger now, a quiet ache in his chest. The studio set is a study in false warmth, soft beige couches, a glass coffee table, a backdrop of abstract blues that's meant to soothe. Marcus takes his seat, the leather creaking under him, and adjusts his cufflinks, a pair his mother gave him when he launched Tate Innovations. They're simple silver engraved with a tiny star, a nod to her mantra, shine anyway. The host, Ellen Carver, strides in her blonde hair perfectly styled, her smile polished but cold. At 50, she's a Chicago institution, her sharp questions cloaked in Midwestern charm. Marcus Tate, she says, extending a hand, her voice smooth as silk. So glad you're here. Her grip is firm, but her eyes don't linger, already scanning the cue cards in her lap. The cameras hum to life, their red lights blinking like predators' eyes. The audience, a sea of faces behind the glare of studio lights, shifts in their seats. Ellen leans forward, her smile widening. Marcus, you're the CEO of Tate Innovations, a rising star in Chicago's tech scene. Your recent CyberShield contract, $150 million no less, has turned heads. Tell us, how does it feel to compete with the big players? Her tone is warm, inviting, but Marcus feels the undercurrent, the setup lurking beneath her words. He nods, his voice steady. It's humbling. We worked years to build something that could stand toe-to-toe with anyone. It's about the team, the vision, not just me. Ellen's smile doesn't falter, but her eyes narrow slightly, a glint of something sharper. Impressive, she says, flipping a cue card. But let's dig deeper. Some say contracts like yours come with advantages, diversity initiatives, government mandates. Is that part of your story? The question lands like a blade, subtle but slicing, and a murmur ripples through the audience. Marcus's fingers tighten around the armrest, but his face remains calm, a mask of quiet strength. Advantages, he echoes, his voice low measured. I'd say it's about outworking everyone else. Our tech speaks for itself. Ellen tilts her head, her smile tightening. Of course, but you can't deny the system gives certain groups a boost, right? The air shifts heavy with unspoken prejudice. Marcus feels the eyes of the audience, the cameras, the city beyond, all waiting for him to stumble. He thinks of his mother again, her tired hands, her unyielding faith. Shine anyway. He leans back slightly, his gaze steady on Ellen. The system, he says, is a funny thing. It's never as fair as people like to believe. The words hang there, a quiet challenge, and Ellen's smile flickers just for a moment. The producer in the control booth leans forward, sensing the tension. This is only the beginning, and Marcus knows it. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. The studio lights burn hotter now, their glare sharpening the edges of Ellen Carver's smile. Marcus Tate sits across from her, his posture composed, but beneath the surface, a quiet storm brews. The audience leans forward, sensing the shift, their murmurs fading into a tense hush. Ellen's question. You can't deny the system gives certain groups a boost, right? Still lingers at his barb, lodged deep. Marcus's fingers rest on the armrest, the silver star cufflinks glinting faintly, a tether to his mother's words. Shine anyway. He feels the weight of Chicago, watching a city of contradictions, gleaming towers and shadowed streets, opportunity and exclusion woven tight. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. Ellen leans in, her voice honeyed but sharp, like a blade dipped in syrup. Marcus, let's be real. Tate Innovations is a success story, no question. But diversity programs, grants, incentives, they open doors, don't they? Doors that others might not get. Her words are careful, cloaked in curiosity, but the implication stings. His achievements are not his own, but a gift from a system pitting his race. The audience shifts, some nodding, others frowning, the air thick with unspoken biases. Marcus's jaw tightens, a subtle flex of muscle, but his eyes remain steady, dark pools of resolve. He thinks of his daughter, Aisha, her voice echoing from last night. They're just going to twist what you say. He won't give them the satisfaction. Open doors, Marcus says, his voice low, deliberate, cutting through the studio's hum. Ellen, I built my own door, hammered it, hinged it, kicked it down. No one handed me the key. A ripple passes through the crowd, a mix of gasps and murmurs. Ellen's smile falters a crack in her polished facade, but she recovers quickly, flipping a cue card with a practiced flick. That's inspiring, she says, her tone tilting toward condescension. But let's talk about the playing field. You grew up on Chicago's South Side, right? Tough neighborhood single mom. A real underdog story. She pauses, letting the words hang, her eyes scanning him like a prosecutor sizing up a witness. How does someone from that background land a $150 million contract without extra help? The question is a gut punch wrapped in velvet. It's not just about Marcus now. It's about every black man who's dared to rise, every success story dissected under the microscope of doubt. He feels the studio's eyes, the camera's unblinking stare, the weight of a nation that too often sees his skin before his work. His mind flashes to his early days at Tate Innovations, sleeping on a cot in a rented office, coding through nights when the world seemed to bet against him. He thinks of the bank loans, denied the investors who smiled politely before passing the whispers of diversity hire trailing him like shadows. Shine anyway. His mother's voice hums a steady pulse against the rising tide of anger. Marcus leans forward slightly, his hands clasped, his voice calm but edged with steel. Help, Ellen. You mean the kind that comes from working 2 jobs to pay for college? Or the kind from teaching myself to code because no one else would? That's the help I got. The audience stirs a few heads. Nodding, others frozen, caught in the rawness of his words. Ellen's lips press into a thin line, her fingers tightening around her cue cards. She hadn't expected this, his refusal to bend his quiet defiance. That's not what I meant, she says, her voice tightening, a hint of irritation slipping through. I'm talking about programs designed to lift up certain communities. Affirmative action, minority grants. They're part of your story, aren't they? The studio feels smaller now, the air thick with tension like a storm about to break. Marcus's assistant, Lena, watches from the wings, her arms crossed, her breath held. She'd warned him about this, about the way these showed bait and twist. But Marcus had walked in anyway, his shoulders squared, his heart armored. Now, as Ellen's words hang in the air, Lena's eyes flicker with worry but also pride. Marcus doesn't flinch. Programs, he says, a faint chuckle escaping, not bitter, but knowing. You know what's funny, Ellen? When a white CEO wins a contract, no one asks which country club got him the deal. No one digs into which family friend funded his startup. But me. My success is always a mystery to solve. A hush falls over the set, the kind that makes producers sweat. The control booth buzzes, a voice crackling through an earpiece, but Ellen ignores it, her eyes locked on Marcus. She's miscalculated, and she knows it. Her smile returns, but it's strained like a mask slipping. That's an interesting perspective, she says, her voice smoothing out, regaining control. But let's talk perception. Some say stories like yours get amplified because they're marketable. The struggle, the triumph, it's a narrative people love. Maybe too much. The question is a trap designed to paint Marcus as a beneficiary of pity, his success, a scripted drama rather than a hard-earned truth. Marcus's fingers brush the star cufflinks, a fleeting touch that grounds him. He thinks of his mother's diner, the grease-stained apron she wore, the way she'd hum gospel tunes to keep going. He thinks of Aisha, who's watching this broadcast at home, her young eyes searching for her father's strength. He won't let her see him waver. Marketable, he says, his voice steady, his gaze piercing. If my story sells, it's because it's real. I didn't ask for the struggle, Ellen. I just survived it. The audience erupts in scattered applause, a few voices calling out, "That's right!" Ellen's composure slips again, her knuckles whitening around her cards. She opens her mouth to respond, but Marcus cuts in. His voice softer now, but no less firm. You want to talk perception? Let's talk about why a black man's success is always a headline, but his failures are just expected. The studio is a live wire crackling with energy. Lena in the wings bites her lip, her eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and awe. The producer in the control booth mutters, "We're not cutting to commercial yet." Ellen adjusts her posture, her smile now a thin veneer. "Well, Marcus," she says, her voice clipped, "you're certainly passionate. But let's pivot. Your CyberShield contract, some say it's less about innovation and more about meeting diversity goals. What do you say to that?" The accusation lands like a slap, bold and unapologetic, and the audience gasps a collective intake of breath. Marcus's chest tightens, but his face remains a mask of calm, his eyes burning with a fire that Ellen can't extinguish. He leans back, exhaling slowly, his hands resting on his knees. CyberShield, he says, his voice deliberate, each word a stone laid carefully. It's a system that beat out every competitor because it works. Not because of my skin, but because of my team's grind. You want a question, that Ellen question, the code not my color. The audience erupts again, louder now, a wave of cheers and claps that drowns out Ellen's attempt to interject. Her face flushes, a faint pink creeping up her neck. But she forces a nod, her eyes darting to the producer's booth. The tension is palpable, a tightrope stretched to its limit, and Marcus knows he's walking it alone. But he's walked tighter ropes before, through boardrooms, through rejections, through a world that demanded he prove his worth every day. The segment nears its end, but the battle is far from over. Ellen shuffles her cards, her smile brittle. "We'll have to wrap soon," she says, her voice strained but professional. "But one last question, Marcus. Do you think the system is really as unfair as you're making it out to be?" The question is a final jab, a chance for her to reclaim control. Marcus pauses, his eyes drifting to the audience, to the cameras, to the city beyond. He thinks of his mother's hands, Aisha's hope, the countless others who fought the same fight. "Shine anyway. Unfair." He says, his voice quiet but resonant, filling the room. "It's not about fairness, Ellen. It's about who gets to define it." The words land like a thunderclap, and the studio falls silent, the weight of truth settling over everyone. The studio's silence stretches heavy as a held breath after Marcus Tate's words. "It's not about fairness, Ellen. It's about who gets to define it." The cameras linger, their red lights unblinking, capturing the moment's raw edge. Ellen Carver's smile is a brittle thing now, her fingers clutching her cue cards like a lifeline. The audience, a mosaic of Chicago faces, some wide-eyed, others nodding slowly, feels the weight of Marcus's truth. In the wings, Lena Carter stands rigid, her heart pounding with pride and dread. The producer's voice crackles through an earpiece, urging a commercial break. But Ellen hesitates, her eyes locked on Marcus. He sits calm, his silver star cufflinks catching the light, a quiet reminder to shine anyway. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. Back at Tate Innovations, the evening unfurls in a hush. Marcus stands in his office, the city skyline, a glittering backdrop through the glass. The broadcast is over, but its echoes reverberate. He loosens his tie, the fabric whispering against his collar, and stares at a framed photo on his desk. Him at 20 grinning beside his mother. Her diner apron stained, but her smile radiant. The memory stings her long shifts, her quiet sacrifices, the way she'd say, "They'll doubt you, Marcus, but never doubt yourself." That photo is his anchor, a tether to the boy who dreamed beyond the South Side's cracked sidewalks. Lena knocks, entering with a tablet glowing in her hand. "You're trending," she says, her voice a mix of awe and caution. "Clips from the show are everywhere." Marcus Tate is spiking. She swipes the screen that's showing a flood of posts. "He called out the system on live TV." Ellen got schooled, but darker comments lurk too. Another angry black guy playing victim. "Merit, not race, wins contracts." Marcus's jaw tightens, but his face remains steady, a mask of quiet strength. "Let them talk," he says, his voice low, resonant. "Talk doesn't change facts." Lena hesitates, her braids catching the office's soft light. "Some of our investors called. They're nervous. Said the interview made you look combative." Marcus's lips curve into a wry smile. "Combative, I was honest. If that scares them, they weren't with us anyway." He turns to the window, the city sprawling below, Chicago's heart pulsing with ambition and fracture. The CyberShield contract, a triumph that should have cemented his place, now feels like a lightning rod. He thinks of Aisha, who texted him after the show. "Dad, you were amazing, but be careful." Her words, tender and sharp, sit heavy in his chest. At 14, she's already learning the cost of speaking truth, the way it invites both praise and punishment. Marcus's fingers brush the photo frame, his mother's eyes staring back. Shine anyway. He's not just fighting for himself, he's fighting for Aisha, for every kid who will face the same rigged game. The next morning, Marcus arrives at the office early, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. Tate Innovations hums with quiet energy, It's open plan space alive with coders at their desks, screens glowing with lines of code. But there's a tension today, a ripple of unease. Employees glance at Marcus as he passes some offering nods of respect, others whispering behind coffee mugs. The interview has stirred something, a mix of pride and fear. In the break room, two engineers, Jamal and Sarah, huddle over a phone replaying the clip. Man, he went in, Jamal says, grinning. Sarah frowns, her voice low. Yeah, but now what? People don't like being called out. Marcus overhears but keeps walking, his stride steady, his face unreadable. In his office, Lena waits her tablet, now a war room of updates. We've got a problem, she says, closing the door. One of our big clients, Tech Trend Solutions, is reassessing their partnership. They didn't say it outright, but it's about the interview. Marcus leans against his desk, arms cross the city's hum, filtering through the glass. Reassessing, he repeats the word bitter on his tongue. They loved us when we were quiet. Lena nods, her eyes fierce. They're spooked. Said your tone might not align with their brand. The injustice burns a slow fire in Marcus's chest. He's spent years proving his worth, building tech that outshines giants, only to be judged for daring to speak. He thinks back to the studio, Ellen's barbed questions, the way she framed his success as a fluke, a diversity checkbox. The memory stings, but it also sharpens his resolve. He's faced worse bankers who laughed at his pitches, professors who assumed he'd fail, peers who whispered he was only here because of quotas. Each time he'd answered with work, with results, with a quiet strength that refused to break. Now as the world watches, he feels the same fire. Let them reassess. He tells Lena, his voice calm but firm. We'll find partners who see us for what we are. Lena's eyes soften, a flicker of admiration. You sure about this, Marcus? This could get messy. He nods, his gaze drifting to the photo. Messy's where truth lives. The day unfolds in a blur of meetings and calls, each one tinged with the interview's fallout. A reporter from the Chicago Tribune requests a follow-up, her email polite but probing. Mr. Tate, your comments sparked debate. Care to clarify your stance on systemic bias? Marcus sets it aside, wary of another trap. At lunch, he meets with his lead engineer, Priya, a 35-year-old woman whose sharp mind helped build CyberShield. Over sandwiches in a bustling Loop deli, she's blunt. Boss, you said what needed saying, but people are talking. Some clients think you're too political. Marcus chews slowly, the deli's clamor fading into a hum. Political, he says, his voice quiet but edged. Telling the truth isn't politics, Priya, it's survival. She nods, her eyes searching his. I'm with you, just watch your back. By afternoon, the online storm grows. Social media churns with support and venom, a split screen of America's soul. A viral post praises Marcus. This man spoke for every Black entrepreneur. Respect. Another sneers. Cry harder. Success isn't about race. The hate stings, but Marcus brushes it off, his focus on the work. He spends hours with his team reviewing CyberShield's rollout, their voices a steady rhythm against the chaos. Yet the tension lingers, a shadow over the office. Lena reports a dip in their stock price, a murmur of investor unease. Marcus absorbs it, his face a mask, but inside the weight grows. He's not just a CEO, he's a symbol now, whether he wants to be or not. That evening, Marcus drives home, the city's lights blurring past. His Hyde Park brownstone, a sanctuary of warm wood and soft music, feels distant tonight. Aisha greets him at the door, her braids swinging, her eyes wide with worry. Dad, people are saying crazy stuff online. Are you okay? He pulls her into a hug, her warmth grounding him. I'm fine, baby girl, he says, his voice steady. Just spoke my heart. She pulls back, searching his face. But what if they come for you, like really come for you? The question cuts, a reminder of the stakes. Marcus kneels, meeting her gaze. They can try, he says, his voice soft but ironclad. But I'm not going anywhere. Aisha nods, but her eyes hold fear, a child's glimpse of the world's cruelty. Later, alone in his study, Marcus sips bourbon, the glass cool against his palm. The photo of his mother sits on the desk, her smile a quiet challenge. He thinks of the studio, the way Ellen's questions peeled back his skin, exposing the raw truth beneath. He thinks of Aisha, Priya, Lena, the people who need him to stand tall. The world is watching, waiting for him to crack or cower. But Marcus Tate doesn't break. He sets the glass down, his fingers brushing the star cufflinks on the desk. Shine anyway. The fight is far from over, and he's only begun to show his strength. Marcus Tate stands at the precipice of a storm, the echoes of his Chicago Sunrise interview rippling through the city like a pulse. The office of Tate Innovations hums with a restless energy, its glass walls reflecting the late afternoon sun. Employees move with purpose, but their glances linger on Marcus, some with quiet pride, others with unease. The viral clip of his clash with Ellen Carver has ignited a firestorm. Online hashtags like #MarcusTate and #TruthHurts trending alongside vitriol that cuts deep. Yet Marcus in his tailored suit moves with a calm that belies the chaos. His silver star cufflinks catch the light, a silent vow to shine anyway. Some truths linger waiting to be unveiled. The day after the broadcast, Marcus receives another invitation from Chicago's Sunrise. The email is formal, almost contrite. "We'd like to invite you back to continue the conversation." Lena, pacing his office, scoffs at the screen. Continue, they mean clean up their mess. Ellen's getting roasted online and they know it. Marcus leans back in his chair, the city skyline a glittering backdrop. "They want a sequel," he says, his voice low, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Fine, let's give them one." Lena's eyes widen, her braids swinging as she shakes her head. "Marcus, this is a trap. They'll double down, make you the bad guy." He meets her gaze, his eyes steady, resolute. "I've been the bad guy my whole life, Lena. I know how to play the part." The decision weighs heavy, but Marcus feels the pull of something bigger. This isn't just about him. It's about Aisha, watching from their Hyde Park brownstone, learning what it means to stand tall. It's about his mother, whose diner-stained hands built his foundation, whispering, "Shine anyway," through the years. It's about every Black entrepreneur who's faced the same skeptical stares, the same barbed questions. He thinks of the South Side, where kids like he once was still dodge bullets to dream. If he backs down now, he hands the narrative to Ellen, to the system that thrives on silence. "Book it," he tells Lena, his voice firm. "But on my terms." The morning of the follow-up interview, Chicago wakes under a slate gray sky, the air thick with the promise of rain. Marcus arrives at the WCLT studios, the glass facade reflecting a city both proud and fractured. The green room is the same sterile cold, the monitor flashing the live broadcast. A segment on urban renewal fades, replaced by a teaser. Marcus Tate returns. Can he defend his claims? Marcus's jaw tightens, but his hands are steady, brushing the star cufflinks as he adjusts his tie. A young producer, nervous this time, mumbles, "We're live in 10, Mr. Tate." Marcus nods his silence, a shield, his mind replaying Aisha's words. "Be careful, Dad." He will be, but he won't be quiet. The studio set feels different today, the beige couches and glass table unchanged, but the air charged like a courtroom awaiting a verdict. Ellen strides in, her smile tighter, her eyes wary. The audience, larger now, buzzes with anticipation, their faces a mix of curiosity and judgment. The cameras hum to life, and Ellen leans forward, her voice smooth but edged. "Marcus Tate, welcome back. Your last appearance sparked quite a conversation." Her pause is deliberate, a challenge. Marcus nods, his face calm, his voice even. "Good. Conversations need sparking." A murmur ripples through the crowd, and Ellen's smile twitches a crack in her armor. She dives in her questions, sharper now, honed by the backlash she's faced. "Marcus, you spoke passionately about systemic bias, but some viewers felt you were deflecting. They want to know, isn't success about hard work, not race?" The question is a blade slicing at his core, and the audience leans in, hungry for his response. Marcus feels the weight of their eyes, the cameras, the city beyond. He thinks of his mother's diner, the grease on her hands, the way she'd hum to drown out the world's noise. He thinks of Aisha, watching at home, her hope tethered to his strength. "Shine anyway." His fingers brush the cufflinks, grounding him, and he leans forward, his voice steady, resonant. "Hard work," Marcus says, his eyes locking with Ellen's. "I've worked harder than most, Ellen. Built a company from a cot in a rented room. But let's be real, hard work doesn't level the field when the rules are written against you." The audience stirs, some nodding, others frowning, the tension coiling tighter. Ellen's smile tightens, her fingers gripping her cue cards. "But Marcus," she presses, her voice rising slightly, "you're proof the system works. You're here, successful, celebrated. Doesn't that contradict your claims?" The question is a trap designed to paint him as ungrateful, a man biting the hand that fed him. Marcus pauses, letting the silence stretch his gaze, drifting to the audience, then the cameras. The moment feels like a precipice, the edge of something irreversible. He thinks of the bank loans denied the investors who passed the whispers of diversity hire that dogged his rise. He thinks of the South Side where dreams are born, but too often buried. This is his chance not just to answer, but to shift the narrative, to speak for those who've never had a microphone. Proof the system works, he says, his voice low, deliberate, each word a hammer striking stone. No, Ellen, I'm proof you can fight through a broken system and still stand. But don't mistake survival for fairness. The studio erupts a wave of gasps and applause, but Marcus isn't done. He leans forward, his eyes blazing, his voice rising with a quiet fury that silences the room. You want to talk success? Let's talk about the white CEO who fails upward, lands another job after tanking a company. Let's talk about the black entrepreneur who gets one shot, and if he stumbles, it's proof he didn't belong. Let's talk about loans denied at twice the rate, venture capital that skips us by boardrooms, where we're the only one like us. His words cut through the air, sharp and undeniable, and Ellen's face pales, her smile gone. You call that fair? Marcus continues, his voice steady but electric. I call it a rigged game, and I'm done pretending it's not. The audience is on its feet, cheers drowning out the producer's frantic signals. Lena in the wings grips her tablet, tears in her eyes, a smile breaking through. Ellen opens her mouth, but no words come, her composure shattered. Marcus turns to the camera, his gaze piercing the lens, speaking directly to the millions watching. Some of you get this, he says, his voice softening, but no less powerful. You've lived it, felt it, and some of you are shaking your heads, telling yourselves it's not real. But deep down, you know it is. The silence that follows is deafening, a moment that will echo across the nation. Ellen scrambles to regain control, her voice strained. We'll take a quick break. The camera's cut, but the damage is done. Within minutes, the clip floods the internet, social media ablaze with, Marcus Tate just ended her. And this is the truth America needs. Ellen's reputation teeters, her show's social media accounts swamped with criticism, her polished image cracking under the weight of Marcus's words. The studio crew stands frozen, the producer muttering, we didn't sign up for this. But Marcus rises from his seat, his shoulders squared, his face calm. He's not just a CEO now. He's a voice, a beacon, a man who's turned prejudice into a mirror for the world to face. As he leaves the studio, the Chicago sky breaks open, rain falling in soft sheets, washing the city clean. Marcus steps into the downpour, his suit darkening, but his heart is light. He's done what he came to do, not for fame, not for revenge, but for truth. For Aisha, for his mother, for everyone who's fought the same fight. Shine anyway. The world is watching, and he's ready for what comes next. Rain falls steadily over Chicago, a soft curtain draping the city as Marcus Tate drives through its glistening streets. The Chicago Sunrise studio is behind him, its lights fading in the rear view, but the weight of his words lingers, a quiet thunder rolling through the nation. His phone buzzes relentlessly, texts from Lena, missed calls from reporters, notifications piling up like leaves in a storm. Social media burns with his name, clips of his speech dissected, praised, vilified. Yet Marcus's hands are steady on the wheel, his silver star cufflinks tucked into his pocket, their faint weight a reminder. Shine anyway. The city hums around him, its skyline a jagged promise of resilience, and he feels for the first time in days a fragile peace. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. At Tate Innovations, our office is a hive of cautious optimism. Employees gather in clusters, their screens glowing with the viral clip, their voices a mix of awe and worry. Jamal, the engineer, replays Marcus's final words. Deep down, you know it is, and shakes his head, grinning. Boss didn't just speak. He preached. Sarah beside him nods, but her eyes are wary. Yeah, but preaching comes with a cut. Hope he's ready. Marcus arrives, his suit still damp from the rain, and the room quiets. He offers a small nod, his presence a steady anchor, and heads to his office where Lena waits, her tablet, a battlefield of updates. You broke the internet, Lena says, her voice half laughing, half exasperated. She swipes through posts. Marcus Tate is a hero for Black entrepreneurs. Ellen Carver exposed as a fraud. But darker threads weave through. He's just stirring division. Boycott Tate Innovations. Lena's brow furrows. We've got new investor inquiries, but tech trend pulled out for good. And there's chatter about a protest outside tomorrow. Marcus leans against his desk, the city's wet glow filtering through the glass. Protest, he says, his voice calm, almost amused. For telling the truth, Lena sighs her braids catching the light. Quoth makes enemies, Marcus. You know that. He nods, his gaze drifting to the framed photo of his mother, her smile a quiet challenge. Shine anyway. The fallout unfolds swiftly. By evening, cable news dissects the interview pundits clashing over Marcus's words. A CNN anchor calls it a reckoning for corporate America. A Fox commentator sneers. He's weaponizing race for clout. Ellen Carver issues a statement, her words carefully crafted. I regret any misunderstanding. My role is to ask tough questions. Marcus reads it on his phone, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Misunderstanding, he mutters, setting the device down. Aisha, curled on the couch in their Hyde Park brownstone, looks up from her homework. Dad, you're everywhere, she says, her voice a mix of pride and fear. Are we going to be okay? Marcus sits beside her, his hand gentle on her shoulder. We're more than okay, baby girl. We're fighting. The next morning, Marcus wakes to a city transformed. Outside Tate Innovations, a small crowd gathers, not protesters, but supporters holding signs. Truth matters. Stand with Marcus. A local pastor leads a prayer, his voice rising over the loop's clamor, and a young woman, a coder from a rival firm, approaches Marcus as he arrives. You said what I've felt my whole career, she says, her eyes bright with tears. Thank you. Marcus nods, his throat tight, and steps inside where his team waits. Priya, the lead engineer, greets him with a rare smile. We're trending for the right reasons now. Boss, CyberShield inquiries are up, Lena adds, and 2 new investors signed on. They called you? Inspiring. Marcus exhales, the weight easing if only slightly. But the cost remains. Anonymous emails flood his inbox, their venom sharp. Know your place. You'll regret this. A brick shatters a window at the office's entrance, a scrawled note attached. Quit now. Lena insists on security, her voice firm, but Marcus waves it off, his eyes steady. They want fear, he says. They won't get it. He thinks of his mother, her hands rough from years at the diner, her voice steady through every storm. He thinks of Aisha, whose courage grows with every challenge. This fight, he knows, is bigger than him. It's for them, for the city, for a truth that refuses to bend. As days pass, the narrative shifts. The Chicago Tribune runs a feature. Marcus Tate's stand, a wake-up call for equity. Community leaders reach out, inviting him to speak at a citywide forum on systemic bias. Schools share his clip in classrooms, sparking debates among students like Aisha, who tells him, My friends think you're a superhero, Dad. Marcus chuckles, but the weight of her words settles deep. He's no hero, just a man who refused to bow. Ellen's show, meanwhile, hemorrhages sponsors her once polished image tarnished. Social media whispers of her taking personal, leave her absence a silent admission of defeat. Marcus feels no joy in her fall, only a quiet resolve to keep moving forward. That evening, Marcus stands on the rooftop of Tate Innovations, the Chicago skyline, sprawling before him. Its lights a tapestry of struggle and hope. The rain has stopped, leaving the air clean, the stars faint but defiant. He holds the star cufflinks, their silver cool against his palm, and thinks of his mother's diner, Aisha's laughter, the faces in the crowd today. In a nation built on second chances, Marcus has claimed his not through revenge, but through truth, a quiet victory that resonates deeper than any shout. His fight has sparked something, a ripple of courage, a demand for justice that Chicago, and perhaps beyond, cannot ignore. He's shown that dignity isn't given. It's forged, held tight, and carried forward no matter the cost. Marcus exhales, the city's pulse syncing with his own. The road ahead is long, fraught with new battles, but he's ready. For his mother who taught him to shine. For Aisha, who'll inherit a world he's helping shape. For every soul who's fought the same fight, their names unknown, but their strength eternal. He slips the cufflinks into his pocket, their weight a promise, and turns back to the door, ready to face tomorrow.